What is up, guys? It's your boy DFS Jimmy back for another week. This week we are at the King's Place. That's right, it's the Arnold Palmer Invitational at the iconic Bay Hill, situated right off Dr. Phillips Drive, right outside of central metropolitan Orlando area. A really popular spot. We are in the midst of the Florida swing, so we've got Bermuda. We've got a lot of Bermuda. That's how it rolls in Florida. Bay Hill, man. It's as iconic as they come. Last year was the first edition of this tournament without Arnold Palmer there present. Mark Leishman took home a really hard-fought victory. Really, all the things lined up for Leishman last year with the storylines and his kids and the family. And if you don't know the story, check out Mark Leishman's story, man, with his wife, his miracle baby. Really, really great stuff. Re-engaged his commitment to his game, to golf, the whole 9 yards. Really impressive. Sort of really lined up for him to win this tournament. Meant an awful lot to Mark last year. Again, Mark's one of my favorite golfers, by the way. Just like him as a person. Think he's a real good dude. So really happy to see him coming back here to be the defending champion at Bay Hill. Really tough golf course, though. As most of the golf courses in Florida are, you've got quite a bit of water. As you can see behind me, it's actually this behind me. As you can see behind me, water is a core feature on Bay Hill. If this is your first year in DFS, if you haven't been involved with Bay Hill previously, very tough tournament. Very tough golf course. The last few years have been a little bit wonky as they've had some challenges with the greens. They just replaced all the greens a couple of years ago. They had worms. It was kind of a disaster. So the course has played a bit differently the last 2, maybe 3 years than maybe it has historically. And dare I say it played a bit easier the last 2 or 3 years than maybe historically it has. The average winning score around here is about 15 under, but again, the last few years it's been 18, 11, and 17 under. Previously, you had a lot of like 12 and 13 unders that kind of won it. So it seems like maybe with the change of the greens, the ground screw keeping it kind of soft and wanting those greens and the root structures to grow in after, again, they had a disastrous issue with the worms. It's not good. But I feel like this year, especially if the rough is up a little bit, you're going to find a real tough test of golf this week. It is a less than driver course, despite being maybe a bit longer. It is a bit of a technical golf course. A lot of that has to do with the water and some of the forced carries and the way Arnie designed it and makes you kind of play around. You can't just go after this course. We're going to get into some of the winners and the guys that have had success here. And I think you'll see a bit of a trend with ball striking. Again, Florida courses do demand the ball striking. A lot of that has to do with the conditions that tend to crop up throughout the tournament with wind, weather, things like that. Hopefully, it took a quick peek at the weather here. Hopefully, again, we're recording this video a bit late in the week compared to what we normally do. My apologies. I had some computer issues last night, so day late getting the video out. But we do get a decent look at the weather here. Looks like we're in for a really good week of Florida golf, though. Sunshine, low wind. Plus, we're in the middle of the state. For those that are not familiar, Bay Hill is like almost directly in the middle of Florida. So one of the places I've been fortunate enough to live for a period of time. Orlando experiences pretty solid weather year round. Is hot and humid. Will be hot and humid this week, but it looks like the winds are going to be down. Rain's going to stay away. Some potential for some Sunday stuff, but it's not too bad. So I think we're in for a great week of golf. Again, the challenges are going to be isolating your player pool to fit this golf course because it is a technical course. And whenever you're talking about, there's a couple of tournaments every single year that sort of see guys put in some extra effort. They mean a little bit more. Arnie's event is certainly one of them. The Memorial at Jack's Place is another. And then, of course, the 4 majors and the players. Those events stick out to me. For events that guys really get up for. You're going to see a lot this week in tribute to Arnie. Ricky actually always does a great job. Ricky Fowler is one of the guys that really prioritizes this event on the calendar to pay homage to the past kings of the game. Ricky does a great job in terms of exposure and trying to grow the game, but he's got a soft spot for Arnie. Last year he had a tribute with the shoes. Expect to see something in his wardrobe this week, but not so much to touch on Ricky, but to touch on how this tournament specifically impacts players' emotions. Which, I mean, we're trying to handicap something that's very difficult, and it spans 4 days. Lots of variables go into it. This week, you certainly have to add in another one, which is just that intrinsic motivation to be the guy that performs well at the Kings tournament. You've got two icons of golf in my mind, and those are Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer. This is Arnie's tournament, and it always holds a special place in the players' hearts. Expect to see some guys go out of their way to pay tribute to Arnie, and that factors in terms of their mental state as they go into the week. You got guys that are really looking to step up here at this golf tournament. So we're going to take a look at guys that have had consistent success at this event throughout the years, not just ones that maybe get up for a week and really put their game on, but guys that fit this golf course well, have had success throughout the years. We're also going to take a look at the golf course, take a look at the scorecard, find out where guys struggle, find out where the places to attack the course are. As you can see behind me, again, as I mentioned, lots of water on this track. It is a bit of a strategic track despite being fairly long. There are plenty of sand traps. As you see, if you're not avoiding the water, you're looking to avoid sand traps. Arnold Palmer, one of the best in the game, is not going to give the guys an easy test. So without any further ado, let's get into the golf course. We'll take a look at the players that have had success. I'll share some of my model with you, and we'll get you out of here. But either way, we're going to get you prepared for the event this week. And moving into the event, so we've got the scorecard here. Fanshare puts this video on every week. If you're not already a member, make sure you get over there. Check out their free content. Check out their paid content. Certainly worth it. The ownership analysis that they do every single week is tops in the industry. So fansharesports.com, they are the sponsor for the video. Make sure you get over there and check those guys out. Now, let's get into the golf course. We are looking at a par 72 this week. It is just shy of 7,400 yards, and it is a pretty strong test. As you can see at the bottom here, you don't have a whole lot of gimme holes. The only holes or a group of holes that average under par are the par 5s this week. Players that plan to find themselves in contention on Sunday, or they want to make a run at this golf course, have to succeed on the par 5s. When you look at players that have had success here year in and year out, the par 5s is where they have done their damage, and they have mitigated damage on the par 4s. So par 5s and par 3s are a bit more important this week than maybe they have been in the past few weeks. Par 4s, you just kind of have to hang on this week. As you see, you got 5 par 4s that are 450 yards or greater, averaging almost a full stroke over par. Guys just need to be on their game. You can't fake it around Arnie's joint here at Bay Hill. It is a true test of golf. Course averages a half stroke, almost a half stroke over par for the last 6 years of play. So it is no joke. But the course can be had, and in a lot of cases, the place to get a hold of a really strong round or get yourself a leg up over the field is attacking all the par 5s each and every day, consistently scoring on the par 5s. That is what we're looking for this week. In terms of DraftKings scoring, that is certainly what you're going to be looking for because, again, the rest of the holes play over par. So we can't really expect birdies on holes that the entire field averages over par. We certainly need to isolate the guys that are averaging under par on the par 5s, and we'll break down that here in a minute. But as you look at the par 3s, they're a little bit more important than they normally are in the sense that they're a scoreable group of holes that dictate command of your long irons this week. Water is in play on most of them, and you don't have a ton of bailout room. So guys that are on their ball striking game this week with regard to the long irons and the par 3s are going to find themselves in a bit more opportunistic position than maybe the rest of the field, given that if you can drain a couple of putts on some of these par 3s, and capitalize on the par 5. The par 4s tend to take care of themselves. But all in all, you can't fake it around this golf course, guys. You do need to put a team of golfers together that are in form and play well in Florida. Make sure you check out the splits part of Fanshare Sports. They've got a great filter for isolating guys that have high DraftKings scoring in Florida. Those guys are going to come into play this week for certain. So as we get further into the course, we see that you do have two very short and potentially the most scoreable par fours on the course. Guys are going to have to capitalize on those, but again, if you put a team of golfers together that are on point this week with their ball striking, that are capitalizing on the par fives, the par fours are almost a given. And again, we are expecting good weather this week, so I really think that we need to focus on the par five scoring, especially when you're talking about your mid-tier golfers in DraftKings, because you don't have to have a high finish here at Bay Hill in order to end up in the top 20 in DraftKings scoring. And again, that has a lot to do with the over par nature of the course, but the very scoreable nature of the par fours. As you can see, they average a full stroke under par and almost completely offset the long par fours with regard to scoring. So par five scoring is a paramount stat this week. Par 3 scoring, more important than it normally is. I'll be weighting it heavier in my models. I suggest you do the same thing here at Bay Hill. So, again, it is a bit of a less than driver course despite being really long, and that has a lot to do with positioning and water here. So, while length is important on the par fives, you have to be very judicious with where you try to attack this golf course. Arnie will make you pay on some of the areas if you try to get too aggressive, especially on the mid-length and longer par fours. If you get too aggressive off the tee, find yourself in the rough, you can really, really struggle to make par on this golf course. A lot of that is going to be due to how the superintendents decide to set the course up this year compared to the last three when they were really working through the challenges with the greens. Last year they had the greens dialed in real well, and they let the rough grow out a little bit more because the greens were holding nicely. This year, I'm not really certain how the rough is going to affect the greens. The greens should be fully grown in. They should be operating at speed, and the greens crew should have full control of the speed of the greens this year. With that said, I expect the rough to be similar to last year or even a bit thicker. And because we are in Florida, expect a fairly drastic difference in the way the course plays from the morning wave to the afternoon wave, despite the lack of wind. You got a lot of moisture in the center of the state there in Florida. You got a nice healthy coating of dew for your morning wave guys. The greens are going to run a lot slower in the morning and a lot faster in the afternoon as they start to dry out. The same thing can be said with the rough. Your morning guys, if you're going out in the morning, they need to be finding the fairways. If the grounds crew let the rough grow out here, it is brutal, especially in the morning when it's sticky and it's wet. It grabs that club, turns it right over. Guys really struggle with that. So if you're stacking waves, one or the other, focus on driving accuracy for the morning wave for sure, especially on Thursday if forecast holds the way it should be. So the course does tend to change quite a bit because of the location and because of the weather patterns in Florida. You get a nice heavy coating of dew in the mornings, and the course dries out pretty drastically by the afternoon wave. The greens are certainly the most affected, the greens and the rough. So pay attention to that as you're building your lineups this week. And again, pay attention to the weather. Keep an eye on it. Again, we're expecting great weather. We are in Florida, subject to change. So keep an eye on that, but definitely expect changes in the course playability from morning to afternoon with regard to the rough and with regard to the greens. Now, let's take a look at golfers that have had success here in the past and ones that we think might have success here in the future. So as we get into course history, my adjusted course history is how I have this sorted right now. Francesco Molinari, no surprise with his really, really stellar clean ball striking, finding himself in the best adjusted course history position. He's put together a really strong resume over the last 5 years at this golf course, as has Rory. Now, you'll see here in this spreadsheet, I also have attached my personal model. So you can see that there's a lot of correlation between course history and my model this week. Last time that happened, we found some success. So I don't want to get too heavy into the course history angle because again, it's things change year in and year out, and I've already addressed it, how the course is played quite a bit differently in the last 3 years than it has prior to. Expect a difficult course this week, but the skill sets should translate nicely. And as you see here, you don't have any slouches at the top of this list. These are all top-tier ball strikers that have performed year in and year out, and it's because they have a great iron game and they know how to position themselves off the tee. Sans Rory and Jason Day, everybody else here tends to be a position golfer focused on long iron ball striking that has found a way to succeed. Rory and Jason Day are the two outliers, and again, when Rory's on, there's maybe not a better long iron player in all of golf, in my opinion. Problem is, he's not always on, and he relies on his length a little more than maybe he should. Same thing with Jason Day, except Jason Day is never, ever going to be accused of being the most accurate driver of the golf ball, nor the most consistent long iron ball striker. That said, he's found a way with his short game, with his putting, and with his length off the tee to overcome that and put together a really strong string of performances here with a win as well. But I do want to sort of showcase Jason Day's sort of wild finishes here. A couple of top 20s and then a first and 17th, and then he didn't play in 2014, but he hasn't had a whole bunch of really consistent finishes. A lot of that has to do with him sort of just overcoming some of his accuracy deficiencies through brute power, strength, and his just incredibly stellar short game. The rest of this list, though, is comprised of golfers that that make all their hay through ball striking, through clean play, through positioning, and a little bit of length doesn't hurt. But when you look at golfers like an Ian Poulter that's got a decent course history here, you look at a Henrik Stenson. Henrik is basically, every time he plays except 2017, he's basically putting a top 10 up, and his rank is number 3 in my model. Now, I do want to preface, Henrik has not had the greatest start to the 2019 season, but I think it helps highlight what really is important at this golf course, and that is long iron ball striking. And that harkens back to how important I talked about the par 3s being at this track. The par 3s really do set you up for success. If you can find consistency on the par 3s, find a way to make a few birdies on the par 5s, you can get around some of these par 4s this week. And even some of the par 4s really do make you lean on your ball striking because of the water that comes into play here. Guys can't carry it, or they have to lay up short of it, etc., etc. So long iron ball striking really is maybe the most crucial element to success outside of par 5 scoring at Bay Hill. And again, you just look at the top 10, 12 golfers that I've got highlighted here. All of them except Jason Day are world-class long iron ball strikers. You start scrolling down this list, and again, there's a bunch of other good guys that rank high in, up here, but they all are great long iron ball strikers. It takes all the way down to get to Kevin Na, Patrick Reed, Kiridash Affey, Barnrat. We're 26, 27, 8, 29 names down the list before we get into guys that are finding a way to have success here, but are not the most consistent ball strikers on tour. And I can't stress enough. You look at the top of this list, and there is one very, very common thing. They are all really, really consistent long iron ball strikers. That translates to success at this course. You do want to isolate the guys that are in form, but again, I can't stress it enough. Just look at the list. Francesco Molinari is maybe the best ball striker in all of golf in the last 10 years. I mean, the run he put together last year was incredible. That is obviously translated to success at Arnie's Place throughout the last 5 years. You just look at the finishes. So I can't stress it enough. Long iron ball striking is maybe your most important key stat by player, and then par 5 scoring, followed by par 3 scoring. Those are the places you're going to want to focus this week. You look down this list of guys that have had success here. Great ball strikers, not the greatest putters. Greens are a bit smaller here. If you're putting yourself in position, you're finding the green, you're going to stand a decent shot of dropping a few putts, putting yourself in position to contend throughout the weekend here. And again, you just look down this list. It's fairly self-explanatory. Long iron ball striking. It's what Arnie demanded for success, and that's what's translated to success year in and year out since 2014 and prior. So that's where you need to be focused. That's the breakdown of the course this week. I'm going to wrap it up. It's your boy, DFS Jimmy, signing off for Fanshare Sports Early Week Course Preview. Y'all have a great week. Best of luck. We'll see you next week.